Hello and welcome to Culture Shark, a live stream about all things pop culture. I'm Final Monkey,
And I'm Caleb.
and today we are continuing to look at classic comic book stories, some that you may not know about. Today is Doctor Strange: The Oath by Brian K. Vaughan and Marcos Martin, I believe.
Which I didn't know that going into this, I didn't know it was Brian K. Vaughan.
Yeah, Brian K. Vaughan has written some cool stuff in the past. Why the Last Man, created Runaways and The Hood, and what is his current series that everybody talks about? I'm drawing a blank on it. Saga, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Saga.
Saga. He's also done some TV work. He worked briefly on Lost and some other stuff. So I really enjoy Brian K. Vaughan usually. So today is a 5-issue limited series, Doctor Strange: The Oath. So we're going to go over that. I haven't read too much Doctor Strange. Let me rephrase that. I've read several comic books where Doctor Strange has shown up. I've rarely read stories where it's his name in the title, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think on our show we've read what was it called? Trials and Torment. Is that what it was called?
hmm
Where he teamed up with Doctor Doom to rescue Doctor Doom's mom from hell. So
Which this this kind of reminded me a little bit of Trials and Torment, a little bit, but like the beginning part, because of like how the the Sorcerer Supreme, like this is kind of about the title of Sorcerer Supreme in a way.
I was getting it was kind of reminding me of Hush a little bit. I don't know if you caught that at all. Not the gathering of villains and all that nonsense, but just that
Well,
there's this character from Doctor Strange's background that's kind of following in his footsteps, and now it's this secret nemesis and that sort
well,
of thing.
honestly, it did kind of remind me of Hush, because um, I agree with you that there were like um, similarities as far as like from the background, and also a surge, and which is more of a Doctor Strange thing than a Thomas Elliot thing. Um, but there was kind of like at one point there was a collection of villains.
Oh yes, there were. Now I'm thinking about it. It's you have to forgive me. It has been a busy week. We're doing Cobra Kai next week, so I've been watching so much Cobra Kai that
Yeah.
I have way more Cobra Kai on my brain right now than Doctor Strange. So I'm trying to stay focused on Doctor Strange. Uh, that being said, check out our Cobra Kai episode next week. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so this story opens with Doctor Strange getting shot and being taken to the night nurse.
hmm Which this is a different night nurse than we may be used to. Like the night nurse that most people now know of was played by Rosario Dawson. Um,
Mhm.
this one, uh, ironically, her name is Linda Carter.
You know what? I didn't even notice that, but
Yeah.
okay.
So Linda Carter, Wong is carrying Stephen Strange, his master, uh, to night nurse, and he's raving about how he couldn't protect him. I believe is what it was. That he couldn't protect him. He couldn't protect his master. He couldn't. Um, and that's kind of how it opens.
Yeah, so let's talk about Wong for a minute. This is a very different Wong than the one we see in the MCU. This is kind of the Wong I prefer actually. This faithful servant willing to die for Steven and his kind of protector. He's
Hmm.
he it is his duty to protect the Sorcerer Supreme. Whereas it feels like in the movies, Wong is more of a rival for the title almost.
I
It,
I always
it
found
kind
him
of
as like a grumpy librarian.
yeah, yeah, and now he is the Sorcerer Supreme, which is weird. It's just weird. I don't.
Yeah.
It's something weird they did, and it's like I understand that Steven was gone during the blip, but why did you give the title back to him when he got back?
Yeah.
It just the MCU. Anyhow, we're here to talk about the Oath. So, um, we are going to have some difficulties talking about this review since we are on YouTube, and there are certain terms that we cannot use. Um, the assailant that shot Doctor Strange used a gun that was used to unalive a German dictator. I think
Mhm.
that's what we could say
Yes.
on YouTube and get away with it. So you can fill in the blanks there. And because this gun was so evil, there was so much evil, you know, that is in the Catholic Church that's considered a very sinful act to do that, and uh, it done by a horrible person. Because of that, this gun is very cursed, and it was able to penetrate the shields of Doctor Strange.
Hmm. Yeah, and honestly, if there was any, this actually did remind me of a DC story, but more so, this really reminds me of like it reminds me of like a classic Hellblazer story more than anything.
Sure, yeah, yeah, I could see this being Constantine type story. Sure.
Yeah. This is honestly, this is really showing me that like if there is like a if there's a Marvel character that I've read the most of, it is Daredevil. Um, this is showing me that like Strange needs to be next on my list because like this was one of my selections. Um, actually, you know what's really funny? Before we realized how much of Runaways I needed to get through, that 1 week wasn't going to suffice. We were going to do Runaways. I didn't realize. I just made the Brian K. Vaughan connection right now.
Yeah, you just
Uh,
took us to a different one. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but yeah, it's just like this is just so much my bag. Like this, I chose this because I've heard a lot of good things about it. And I'm a big fan of the mystic arts in comic books, whether it's the Justice League Dark, Zatanna, Constantine, and I really enjoyed Trial and Torment. Um, and so yeah, this is just so much my bag. This is showing me that Strange probably needs to be next on my list of things to read through.
So we'll loop back to that at the end. Maybe what our next Doctor Strange story will be that we'll read.
Hmm.
But let's get back to this story. The reason though that Doctor Strange was shot by the assailant, I think his name was Brigand. Is that his name?
Yes.
Is that Doctor Strange had gotten his hands on an elixir, I guess is the best way to put it, because he was trying to cure Wong, who we find out has a brain tumor.
Hmm. Which is such a fun reveal. Uh, not a fun reveal. But it's an interesting way that they revealed it because like it's has nothing to do with like the mystic arts or anything like that, and that's kind of why I like this. Um, this is like um, the physical meets the metaphysical. Uh, Strange just finds a pill bottle, and he knows what the pills are for. And then Wong is like, "Yes, well, I have this brain tumor, and I was waiting to tell you until we could find a suitable replacement for me, but I have about 3 months to live."
Right. And so this kind of turns into a classic Superman story. You can't save everyone, but Doctor Strange is you could say he got over his arrogance, but he's still very arrogant. And he's
Hmm.
like, no, I'm the Sorcerer Supreme. I'll fix this. And Night Nurse is a counter argument to this, where she's like, we can't save everyone. I do what I can for the superhero community, but we can't save everyone. We're doctors. We will lose patients sometimes. And so we this is probably a pretty good starter comic book for someone who's never read Doctor Strange. It does go back over how he became
Hmm.
Doctor Strange, and it
Yeah.
retells those stories and ties back into all that. So
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It's not necessarily a year one or a Man of Steel, um, but it is definitely. I'm trying to think of like a good um, contemporary example because I keep going back to Hellblazer. This really reminds me of Hellblazer, all his engines. um, but I can't think of a contemporary example of like this is it's a very modern story, um, but in a way it does circle back to his origin.
yes. So along the way, we're introduced to another doctor, uh, Nicodemus West, I believe was his name, and I kept thinking of the Reanimator,
Hmm.
because his name's similar. But he is the surgeon that fixed Doctor Strange's hands after the accident that
Yeah,
caused him no longer be a surgeon. And I do like that this comic book reminds us that, yeah, his hands are still kind of jacked up, and like
yeah.
later he tries to use a gun, his hands are all shaky and stuff. So it's interesting that he still has hand issues. I think that's one of the things they don't mention too much in the
Yeah.
comics, or that's comics, the movies.
Well, and that is definitely one thing that I like is at this point where he finds this pill bottle and he's raving to Wong about we can fix this, I can fix you, and then like as he's holding the pill bottle, his hands are shaking.
Yeah.
Like as he's raving, like his hand starts shaking. It's this is a Oh man, this I really enjoyed this.
um, so kind of the big bad behind the scenes is a group called I think they're Timely Pharmaceuticals,
Mhm.
and this is a play on I think Marvel Comics. They used to be Timely Comics, right? Back,
Yeah,
yeah. So this is a play on that, and I'm not sure if this is a group that has appeared before the comics or not. I didn't look. I know Brigand's a brand new character, so most likely Brian K. Vaughan made them up for this series.
which uh I I wonder if and you may know this, how much do you know about Kang? Because in the MCU, like there's a Victor Timely, uh which is
So
like
I
the
know
norm.
that I know Timely. Good night. Kang has several different aliases depending on which time you're encountering him. So I know that he's the Centurion, is that his name? And the
Sure.
King Tut, and he's got all these different identities that the Fantastic Four and Avengers have fought him as, Immortus, all that stuff.
Okay. I didn't know if like maybe this was uh I didn't know if this was like the like a reference to like Victor Timely was kind of a reference to this as well, because Loki, even though the show is more sci-fi, it is still kind of in the mystic arts realm. So I don't know if maybe that was a reference or not.
Yeah, and so we find out that this elixir is like they start off saying it's a cure for cancer, and this has been played around with in comic books before. I think Lex Luthor has claimed several times to have the cure for cancer, but he makes too much money off of it, so or off of it being a disease. That is a popular a conspiracy theory. Is that there is a cure for cancer, and that the cancer companies make too much money, so they don't want to give it out.
Hmm.
I I think it's way more complicated than that, and there's no just like simple cure for cancer, because if you really learn about cancer and study about it, that everybody has a different genetic makeup, and cancer evolves per different genetic makeups. And so one cure for a certain type of cancer is not going to cure the other type because it's mutated, and so on. So it's way more complicated than people just go, oh, there's going to be a cure for cancer. Well, no, there might be
Hmm.
a cure for this type of cancer, but not that type, and so on. So
Yeah. This one I can get more behind
yes,
because this is just magic.
yeah, magic, I'm fine with, because, well, I guess spoilers for later on, we find out that this is a cure not just for cancer but for everything, and that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
I believe it's Odd Kids Elixir is, I think, what
Yeah.
what it ends up being called. Um, by the way, one thing that I it's one of those things where, like, you like a movie, because I love both Doctor Strange movies. Despite what my tier list may say, I do love both of them. um, and it's interesting watching them and then realizing, oh, this is what the Eye of Agamotto actually does.
Right.
um, which, I mean, it's so interesting that, because if you think about it, even though it is an Infinity Gem, uh, they limit it so much in the movie.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
They limited the Infinity Gauntlet as a whole in the movies. It's way more powerful than comic books, but
yeah.
anyhow, um, yeah. So I'm not sure what slides you have prepared for us. So if you want to kind of direct the conversation from here, and then we could discuss it.
Yeah. Well, so I've just got some of the ones that I found interesting.
Hmm.
Uh, so this one I thought was fun because they she calls him Sherlock.
Yeah, I think this is a very fun team. You have one of the fun things when you're dealing with the supernatural is to have the logical person tag along. It's the whole lost thing between Jack and Locke, where you have science versus like mysticism, and so yeah, this is a fun combination. The other thing is this really shows what Wong's purpose is. There's a point where uh, Doctor Strange is doing astral projections or doing spells, and while he's doing that, Wong is defending his physical body from attacks. Uh, the one cool thing we forgot to point out at the very beginning is while Doctor Strange is dying on the operating table, his astral form gets to assist in his surgery, which I think happened in the was it the first Doctor Strange movie?
Um,
There was something about I know there was a fight, and it's been a long time since I've seen the first one.
you know what? That actually, it doesn't remind me of either of the Doctor Strange movies. Um, but do you remember the Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme animated movie?
I don't know if I've seen it. I know it exists, but I don't think I've ever seen
Uh,
it.
uh, well, fun fact, I think that's the best Doctor Strange movie. um,
Yeah.
um, but it's really good, and I think it might be in that.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, another thing that I find super interesting is the naming of the book, and I don't know why it didn't occur to me. Like, I went into this book like not knowing what the oath was. Um, but obviously it's a double meaning of the oath that he had to take as Sorcerer Supreme and the Hippocratic Oath.
Right.
um, I always found that like super. I found that super interesting. Um, Another thing that I thought was funny is so this book comes out in 2007. And so does little known film called Superbad. Um, and there's a character in here named Jonas Hilt,
Ah.
which 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 is in no way related to Jonah Hill, but I couldn't help making the connection because it's one of my favorite comedies.
There you go.
And I didn't notice it until because I enjoyed this book so much that after reading it, I had to go onto YouTube and I had to see what other YouTubers were saying about it. I think Matt Draper does a really good uh, video on this, and I think oh, who are the guys? Pop something, I don't know. Um, but then whenever someone said Jonas Hilt, I was like driving uh, and listening to it. I had to like double take because like I hadn't said it out loud. um, but eventually, uh, it it turns out that Nicodemus West is connected to timely pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, and there's a mystery of, wait, who's this guy? And he gradually remembers, oh yeah, I think this is the guy that did surgery on my hands. And how does he know the mystic arts? Wait, what?
Yeah.
And it because a while I'm kind of like, when I'm reading this, I was like, okay, who's the bad guy here? Is it Baron Mordo, which I thought was gonna be too obvious. First I thought it was the patient that he refused to treat. And then you find out, no,
Mhm.
it's Nicodemus West. And him having two different color eyes, that should have been the giveaway. Oh, this is probably our bad guy.
Yeah. However, even though it is, and I didn't call it either, but it does seem somewhat projected. Um, what I ended up liking was like how ingrained into his backstory they ended up making him. It does seem kind of retconny, but I'm kind of down with it. Because what happens is West was determined to
He's wanted to find Steven. He's
yeah.
like, where did Steven go? And Steven had went to Tibet and trained to be the Sorcerer Supreme under the Ancient One. And so Nicodemus, he kind of follows his steps, but he gets there too late. Steven's already gone. And then the Ancient One at first doesn't want to train him, and then decides to train him.
Well, and the reason that he decides to train him is because the Ancient One is not convinced that Stephen Strange will live long enough to become Sorcerer Supreme. So Nicodemus West was the backup.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Stephen Strange is still an arrogant hothead. He's still learning, and the Ancient One knows certain prophecies, certain futures, but he's not 100% sure. So this is the backup plan.
Mm-hmm. And but Nicodemus kind of gets bored and leaves like halfway through his training. And another reason that he goes out looking for, because he's not only looking for Stephen, but he's looking for answers. Because when Stephen lost his hands and left, um, he actually ended up kind of, I guess, inheriting all of Stephen's patients. And like I guess that's how being a doctor works, is you inherit patients from other doctors who can no longer operate on them anymore. But the thing is, Stephen was a genius doctor who could fix anybody. Nicodemus is not a genius doc. Like he's not as good of a surgeon as
He's skilled surgeon, but he's not like
he's not
a
Stephen Strange.
master surgeon. He's not Stephen Strange.
Yeah. And so he also goes out.
If I could jump in real quick.
Yeah.
One of the things this book continues to repeat and show me, because like I said, I don't know too much about Stephen Strange, is there are limitations to what he can do. He can do magical stuff, but he can't just conjure cures for things or make like at one point they need I think they need like an intravenous needle or something. He can't just conjure make that appear. He there are limits to what he can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And so Nicodemus, I don't know, fully understood that. He is trying to use his powers to heal people, and it comes at a cost.
Well, and he ends up killing them anyway.
Yeah, he's trying to get rid of the cancer by amplifying the white blood cells, and it ends up destroying the whole body of the patient.
There's part of this that this is one of those things where, like, you like a movie and then you read what it's based on, and like, so Nicodemus West is in the Doctor Strange movies, right?
No.
Yeah.
Like I said, I haven't watched these movies in a while.
He is in them.
Okay.
And he is not this. If anything, he is just not a bumbling idiot, but like he's just more of a rival in a comedy sense than like an actual intellectual threat.
He's just a supporting cast member. He's not
even supporting cast. So yeah, this is one of those things where, like, you like a movie, you read what it's based on, it's like, oh, this character could have been something.
Yeah, they could have planted some seeds, and they didn't.
Yeah.
Welcome to the MCU.
But yeah,
let's jump ahead a little here. Timely Pharmaceuticals, they don't want they end up hiring Nicodemus West, and the reason being is if a healer can just show up and heal everything, that's bad for business. And so they want to put a stop to any mystical healing, and so they hire Nicodemus West for the purpose of stopping and destroying any mystical healers before they become a threat to their bottom line, their company.
Yep.
So we have this fun. We kind of skipped over there. There was a part with I keep forgetting the other guy's name, Brigand. Where they're trying to figure out who the bad guy is. So Doctor Strange goes into Brigand's mind, and he's confronted by Dormammu and Nightmare and all stuff. And Doctor Strange quickly realizes they're all fakes, and that he's just throwing all these red herrings to try to throw him off. And Doctor Strange is like, no, I know these characters. This is not right. So
yeah,
so that was kind of fun.
Yeah, and that's kind of where this is like the best Jeff Loeb I've ever read, because it's not written by Jeff Loeb. But I mean, this is like what Jeff Loeb thinks he writes. This is my opinion of Jeff Loeb and of this book.
Yeah, that's interesting because Batman Hush came out 2003, and this is 2007, and so it feels like I said, it feels like there's just little elements, and I know all stories, kind of draw on the same themes and stuff. So, you're going to have some similar themes, but it's just interesting.
Yeah. Another fun thing is this is 7 issues shorter than anything Jeff Loeb has ever written.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
which did this feel like 5 issues to you? This felt really. This isn't a complaint because, like, I get to the end of it and I feel fulfilled, but like this felt like a breeze to read through.
It seemed like a very quick read.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm
that
not sure
that
what the page counts were, but it was a 5 issue limited series, and so
yeah.
it went pretty quick.
Yeah, and I'll once again say that is not a knock on the film. That's actually uh, that's actually a testament to the writing. Because for those who don't know me, I think I've said this before, but if you can get the best, in my opinion, I think if you can find that medium with a satisfying, deep story, and still making it in a decent time, uh, that's the perfect thing. Like I'm actually not a fan of where entertainment is going to where everything is streaming, everything is, the 12, 15 episode streaming series, and we're moving away from films. I think that you should be able to get your story down to a 2 hour film and still be,
Well,
uh, for the most part at least,
how many
something.
how many episodes was Daredevil Born Again?
9.
And so that probably would have worked better, like as a maybe 5 episode series or 4 episode series. Uh, and I think that there's this idea in America, at least, that we've been given X amount of episodes for a season. We got to fill them in. Whereas, like in England or the UK, they will say, "Oh, we're going to do a new series. Well, we only need 4 episodes to tell a story, so this season's only going to be 4 episodes long, or
Yeah.
whatever." And it just works better for the medium.
Yeah,
And so,
and it's also like, and we're getting a little off topic, but it's
mhm.
still kind of on topic. Um, I feel that way about like epic fantasy books. Um, like we can't have like decently length epic fantasy books anymore because everybody is trying to make their Silmarillion. Everyone is trying to make their Lord of the Rings or their Game of Thrones. Like we're not allowed to just have like a nice, like no one's gonna release The Hobbit now.
Right, right. So let's get to the end of this story here. There's a big magic fight between Doctor Strange and Nicodemus West. They end up burning down Night Nurse's clinic, and she still continues to assist him even after all this. And so does Wong. And we get to a point where Wong is dying. He wants the elixir, and so he's gonna have this big fight with Nicodemus West. And I can't remember what the spell he casts. Some type of hourglass spell where it robs them both of magical powers for 3 minutes.
Hmm.
And in Nicodemus West's head, it's like, oh, I can beat you. You're just your hands are crippled. You're nothing about your magic, not realizing that Wong has been training Doctor Strange in martial arts for decades or however long. And Doctor Strange whoops up on him, and he ends up slipping and falling off the top of the building. And Doctor Strange cannot save him because he has no magical powers.
Yep.
And so the elixir breaks and falls down the sewers. I'm so tired. Sorry. And Doctor Strange is able to save a drop of it, and he has to make a choice now. Does he let Wong die and keep that drop of the Pangea, the elixir, to figure out how to duplicate it to save all of mankind, or save his friend with the drop of the elixir?
Which I thought was a very this is such an interesting idea because this is actually how the original Insomniac Spider-Man video game ends. Um, because there's this virus that is put upon the city by I can't. It's been a while since I played it. I can't remember if it was Mister Negative or Doctor Octopus, but somebody releases this pathogen that. And this is the messed up thing. He basically creates COVID and releases it. This came out in 2019. Um, and so at the end of the game, he's got this cure, and uh, Aunt May has this, and so Peter has to make the decision: do I give this to them so that way they can mass produce this and save the city, or do I give this to my aunt right now who is about to die? Um, and it's the whole great power comes great responsibility. And he has this heart to heart with in the Spider-Man costume. He has his heart to heart with Miss Parker, and then she reveals that she's known all this time. That it's Peter. Takes off his mask. It's a great scene. She dies, and then he goes and saves this city and mass produces this. And then a day later in this book, it turns out that Wong has no traces of cancer. So a different decision has been made.
And what popped into my head is this is the reverse John 3:16. You can replace it with, for Doctor Strange so loved Wong he sacrificed the whole world.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, it's not like he has a whole lot of time to dwell on the decision. It's like you gotta make a decision now.
Yeah.
What are
And
you going to do? And it's about the Hippocratic Oath. He's got to save his patient. And at the end, you're like, did he make the right decision? I can argue it either way. And part of me's like, well, this was a selfish decision. He saved his friend, and others are going to die. But I don't know.
well, and the thing is with everything that I know, like going back to the Spider-Man comparison, because the comparison is very apt to the Insomniac game.
Mhm.
Peter Parker is the one to let his aunt die so he can save the city. But Stephen Strange is definitely the one to make this decision.
Yeah, he's he set out, I'm going to save my friend at any cost, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
And if you think about it long enough, it's like, okay, let's say he let Wong die, and he figures out how to duplicate the elixir. Well, mankind's just going to abuse the elixir. They're going to make money off of it. They're going to only give it to certain people, and they're going to let the poor die. You can it. It's kind of like at the end, Nicodemus West is kind of right that if
Yeah.
you give this to mankind, it's not a good thing. We think it's a good thing, but it
Yeah.
is not a good thing.
Yeah. And then he also says, I think one of the examples that Nicodemus brings up is we're going to have to deal with more and more famine because there will be too many people on Earth alive.
And that's one of those. I hear those arguments, like that's the Thanos argument from Infinity War, and it's one of those things I don't buy. Like, mankind can grow more and more food. It is a renewable resource. We could figure out ways to do it. We do it very poorly, and the powers that be, like, if we really wanted to, we could feed the whole world every day. But there's no profit in it. There's no control in it, and it's a whole thing. So anyhow, again, that's another one of those things you could debate and argue.
Hmm.
Um, so let's go to at the end we get a night nurse is now going to live at the Sanctum Sanctorum. I think that's how you say it.
Hmm. Yep.
And uh, and then we get a kiss between them. I don't think this relationship lasted too long, or if it was only in this limited series. I'm not sure. Like I said, I haven't read a ton of Doctor Strange because I know he's married to Clea now, I believe.
Yes.
So
which I I don't think that this is actually currently in canon. I actually question if this was ever in canon.
this was been 2007, and they were kind of doing, Marvel Knights stories during this decade that could or could not be in canon. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is just just a fun Doctor Strange story, or if it really mattered to continuity. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and it's I this is one of those things that's probably better that it is not canon, because you can now you can have the um you can have your Doctor Strange in your main universe not have to make the cancer decision.
Right, right. Um, so overall, yeah, I recommend this one. This is a fun little Marvel story, one that not enough people talk about, and that's kind of our goal of our show, is to find those. What to read next? I've been really tempted to read the classic Steve Ditko stuff just to see how crazy it is, but there is a
Yeah.
more recent run that I'm curious about.
Is that the Damnation run?
I think that's the same story. Yeah, Donny Cates's run.
Let
I've
me.
heard it's not his best of Marvel work, but I've heard mixed things. So I would be curious to check
All
this out.
right. Damnation is a comic book limited series written by Donny Cates and Nick Spencer.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I think it spins out of this series, like it's the event that spins out of this, but starts in the Doctor Strange book.
Okay.
So that might go on our reading list. I don't know. We'll see. We'll check it out some more. Um, we're
Yeah.
trying to do more DC towards the rest of the year, and some other independent books, but we'll see. We'll keep that one in mind in the back
Mhm.
pocket. So
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Um, but yeah, I definitely recommend this as well. Um, it if you're a DC person and you like some of the more mystic stuff on DC side, like if you like the Justice League Dark film, if you like the Lucifer TV show, or you like Constantine, I would definitely recommend this. This reminded me a lot of the Justice League Dark stuff that we can get into. um, and if you're a fan of, if you like the Doctor Strange movies, I think you'll like this. This is definitely very different than the movies. Um, but I kind of like the tone better.
yeah. I like his arrogance. Oh, there was a line I was going to point out. I forgot. There's a fun part where he says, "Oh, we're going to have a wizard battle. Are you going to turn into a dragon? I'm going to turn into a germ." That was a great reference
Yeah,
to Sword in the Stone and
yeah,
um, the Once a Future King and all that fun stuff. So very cool. Yeah, so that is Doctor Strange: The Oath. Next week we are finally getting to Cobra Kai. We've been kind of hyping it all month, but we had a lot of seasons to watch. I still
yeah.
have a season to watch, so I gotta get through it this week. Uh, got a lot to say about this, and it's gonna be a lot of fun next week. So,
I too am a fan of Hawk the show.
uh,
That.
yeah, we disagree a little on that, but we'll get there. Um, yeah, I've got a lot to say about what the show's about and the themes and all that good stuff. So we'll be discussing that next week. I've I will just give you a hint. I've thoroughly enjoyed Cobra Kai, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
definitely.
going to be a good show next week. So
It's so interesting, and we'll talk about this more later, next week. But like, this was a YouTube Red show.
yes, yeah, a YouTube Red show, and there were things on YouTube Red that I really enjoyed that went nowhere. I mean, we got a final community season, and what was the
So the community season was on Yahoo's thing.
oh, I'm getting them mixed up. That's right. And maybe the other thing I'm getting mixed up. there was the space show with Joel Hodgson from Mission Heights Theater was on there, and the girl from the AT&T commercials was on there. Was it Other
Uh,
Space? Was that what that was called?
Other Space.
Yes, Other Space. I love that show, and it went nowhere.
Other Space. So was that on? Before we sign off, I gotta. Was that YouTube or Yahoo?
It was Yahoo.
It was Yahoo. Okay. Yeah, I think YouTube Red. You had Cobra Kai, and I think you had like a Logan Paul show or something.
Yeah, Matt Pat had a show, and yeah, it was a bunch of weird YouTube stuff.
That's the thing. YouTube Red was a bunch of YouTubers, and then Cobra Kai. Like they had YouTube Red was so weird, and then Netflix eventually bought it out. Which
Yeah.
I don't think we'll talk about more, but I don't think the show would have lasted if it remained on YouTube. I think
No.
Netflix was the best thing to happen to the show.
Yeah, I loved Other Space so much. It did not last long. That cast was a really good cast. So anyhow, it was another Paul Feig show. So shows that could have been. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up there. Join us next time for Cobra Kai, and then what is our? I don't think we have another comic book show after this. Oh, I think we're talking about Astro City. We'll put a big asterisk by that because I still don't have my copy back.
I think our next show after Cobra Kai is actually
it's Astro City.
Is it Astro City?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, so then after Astro City is our
coming attractions. We're gonna look at the rest of the movie slate. We may move that show up or not, depending on if I get my hold of my copy of Astro City before then.
Right.
We'll see. Either way, we are definitely tackling Astro City very soon. And yeah. All right. So until then, I've been Final Monkey.
And I'm Caleb.
And we'll catch you next time in the Shark Pond.
See ya.
Cobra Kai never dies.